In this next section, we're going to discuss metabolism. Living things obtain and use energy. Trees take in sunlight, animals take in food. Both use this energy to grow and reproduce. All chemical reactions in an organism either obtain or use energy. These reactions are an organism's metabolism. Metabolic pathways. A metabolic pathway begins with one or more specific molecules and ends with one or more products. The product of one reaction is the reactant of the next step. Each step is catalyzed by a specific enzyme. Without enzymes, metabolic pathways would not occur or would take millions of years instead of seconds. So here's an example of a metabolic pathway. We have a starting molecule A that goes through reaction 1 through the help of enzyme 1 to create B, which goes through reaction 2 with the help of enzyme 2 to create C, which goes through reaction 3 with the help of enzyme 3 to create D, which is our product. There are two types of metabolic pathways. Anabolic pathways combine building blocks to build big molecules. So anabolic are building up pathways. They are also known as endergonic reactions because they consume energy. So when you just think about like when you're building a molecule or creating chemical bonds, it requires energy to do that. So we're going to combine building blocks to make something bigger via an anabolic pathway. Catabolic pathways break down big molecules into their smaller building blocks. So the reverse of an anabolic pathway. So catabolic pathways take big molecules, break them up into smaller building blocks. These are exergonic reactions because in the breaking or the cleaving of those big molecules into smaller, energy is released. Anabolic pathways require an input of energy. They are not spontaneous. They have products that are more complex than their reactants. They decrease the entropy of life. They increase the entropy of life's surroundings. So the total entropy in the universe increases. So in a straightforward way, small molecules with some input of energy are assembled into larger ones. Photosynthesis is an anabolic process. CO2 and water combine to form C6H12O6 or glucose. This is not a spontaneous reaction. It requires the energy provided by the sunlight. There are fewer resulting particles. We start out with particles of carbon dioxide and water and with one particle glucose, so the entropy of life decreases. That is offset by an even greater increase of entropy of the environment, so the entropy of the universe increases. In contrast, the formation of water from hydrogen and oxygen molecules is not an anabolic process. It is a spontaneous process that only requires a little activation energy. Then the reaction proceeds on its own and releases energy. The entropy of water is lower than that of separate hydrogen and oxygen molecules, since 3 molecules become 2. The energy released as heat from the reaction directly increases the entropy of the environment. Catabolic pathways release energy, have products that are less complex than their reactants, increase the entropy of life, and increase the entropy of life's environment. Simply, catabolic pathways are when large molecules are broken into smaller ones with a release of energy. Breaking down glucose to release energy is catabolic, as we will learn when we study cellular respiration. Glucose molecules are broken down into carbon dioxide and water molecules and provide the energy needed by cells. The number of particles increases, so the entropy of the life increases. The entropy of the environment also increases. Catabolic pathways break down molecules from the environment. When you eat candy, the sugar is digested by a series of more than 20 enzymes. So we have our sugar, oxygen, and enzymes. The metabolic pathway gives you the energy from the candy and releases carbon dioxide and water, and of course our enzymes are unchanged. Anabolic pathways use the energy released from food to build the molecules needed for life. They build bones, muscles, fat, and make new connections in your brain. Organisms use energy to build bigger molecules and carry out their lives. Their internal entropy decreases while the entropy of their environment increases even more. Anabolic pathways are a special characteristic of living things. Anabolic pathways decrease the entropy of life. However, the universe is increasing in entropy all the time. Let's have a discussion about how this is possible. The processes that decrease entropy in life increase it in life's surroundings to an even greater extent, so the total entropy of the universe increases. Have a discussion about putting these ideas in your own words, or think of examples of increasing or decreasing entropy. It's not important to memorize these enzymes, but it is important to appreciate the broad range of their activities. Hydrolases cleave molecules by adding hydrogen group and hydroxide group to the products. Nucleases break down nucleic acids, releasing nucleotides. Proteases break down proteins, releasing amino acids. Lipases break down lipids, releasing smaller lipids. Synthases carry out anabolic reactions, combining building blocks. Polymerases synthesize DNA and RNA. Kinases add phosphate ions to molecules, changing their shape. Phosphatases remove phosphate ions from molecules. Oxidoreductases oxidize one reactant and reduce the other. ATPases power coupled reactions by breaking down ATP. And motor proteins use the cytoskeleton as a guide to move molecules and organelles in the cell. Exergonic and endergonic reactions. When chemical reactions take place, work is done, and the free energy of the reactants will not equal the free energy of the products. Exergonic reactions, such as cellular respiration, are spontaneous, meaning they release energy. Endergonic reactions, such as photosynthesis, are non-spontaneous, meaning they require an input of energy. This diagram shows a spontaneous exergonic process. The free energy of the product B over here is lower than the free energy of the reactant A, and energy was released during the process. Scientists use energy diagrams to illustrate energy changes during a chemical reaction. The x-axis shows the progress of the reaction, not time. The y-axis shows the relative amount of energy in the reactants and products as the reaction progresses. Remember that enzymes work by decreasing the amount of energy required for a reaction. This is called the activation energy, and in our energy diagrams is often labeled E sub A. The active site of an enzyme brings the reactants into the correct orientation and provides an ideal microenvironment for the reaction. Notice that the free energy at the start, here when we have our reactants A plus B, is not changed by the enzymes. The reactants and the products A and B over here are the same. All we're doing is lowering the hill. So without the enzyme, the activation is larger than with the enzyme. A lowered activation energy means that reactions will start much more frequently. Some reactions release energy. We call those exergonic reactions. So we have, in that case, the reactant energy that we start with is higher than the product energy that we end with. This distance here from the reactants to the top of our hill, E1, is the activation energy. The difference in the energy between the reactants and the products, measured here by E2, if we subtract them, products minus reactants will give us the net energy released by the reaction. Some reactions require inputs of energy. We call those endergonic reactions. And the first thing we measure, we're calling E1, is the energy from the reactants up to the top of that hill. That's the activation energy, the energy needed in order to overcome, or the energy you have to overcome in order to produce the products. And then what we're calling E2 here is this amount right here. This is E2. This amount is E1. Is the energy of the products minus the energy of the reactants, or in this case, the net energy absorbed by the reaction. In biological systems, reactions that require energy inputs will not happen spontaneously. One reaction that requires an input of energy in biological systems is photosynthesis. It requires a constant input of energy in the form of sunlight. Sunlight provides the activation energy for the first reactions of photosynthesis. ATP provides inputs of energy for non-spontaneous metabolic reactions. Here's an energy diagram for the cellular respiration process. Throughout the process of cellular respiration, many enzymes increase the rate of reactions by decreasing the activation energy in reactions. This graph shows the decomposition of sugar, glucose, both with and without digestive enzymes. So here in red is without, and blue is with. The initial energy of the reactants and the final energy of the products are unchanged by the enzymes. Enzymes in metabolism. Metabolic reactions would not occur at the speed of living systems without the help of enzymes. Reactions that would never occur or would take years take place in milliseconds inside cells. Enzymatic reactions that are endergonic are coupled with exergonic reactions to make them energetically favorable. The net result is the release of energy, so that entropy always increases. An example of energy coupling is shown on the next slide. The enzymatic reactions that break down glucose release energy, which you can see on the left, and the enzymatic reactions that build proteins require energy, which you can see on the right. These reactions are coupled by the Atp Adp cycle in metabolism. So we have our exergonic reaction paired with our endergonic reaction, exergonic glucose being broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and the release of energy in the form of heat. Our endergonic reaction is the building up of amino acids into polypeptides through the formation of a peptide bond. There's a cycle of ATP and ADP that powers this partnership, this coupled reaction, and overall we have a net exergonic reaction or release of energy. The energy diagrams for cellular respiration and photosynthesis are shown. For cellular respiration on the left, you can see that the energy of the products is lower than the energy of the reactants, and that difference in energy is what is released. For photosynthesis, the reactant energy is below the product energy, so the products have more energy. How much more is the energy that is added? Although enzymes decrease the amount of free energy required for every metabolic reaction, entropy always increases as energy is released as heat. Catabolic reactions, so those that decompose or are exergonic, They break larger molecules into smaller, more stable molecules. Some of the energy released is free energy that can be used by the cell to transport materials across its membrane or to build up other molecules. So we have free energy there to use. But there's always heat energy that is released as well. So entropy has increased and there's less free energy available for work than there was before the catabolic reaction happened. The difference in free energy between the reactants and the products is the same with or without an enzyme. We can see here measured by this overall energy released during reaction is the same with or without an enzyme. But without an enzyme, there's more activation energy required, and there's a higher increase in entropy. In anabolic reactions, those that are synthesizing, that build up bigger molecules, that require an input of energy, the free energy available to do work is higher in the products. You can see that the energy is higher in the products than in the reactants because that energy is absorbed. However, this comes at a cost. Anabolic reactions do not happen spontaneously. They have to be coupled with catabolic reactions. The heat that is released, which increases the entropy in the reaction, is the difference in energy between the free energy input and the free energy available in the products.